Hey everyone, I'm Brendan, welcome back to The Crawl. Okay, Metroidvania games. You love them, I love them. That probably comes as no surprise. I mean, I made an entire documentary on the Metroid series after all. But when it comes to indie Metroidvanias, there are a lot of them. They're coming out all the time. And so I think it takes something really special to catch not just my eye, but the eye of the general public. Just in 2023 alone, there's been some really great Metroidvanias, but there's one game in particular that's coming out soon that has really caught my attention. It's called Lucid. It's by Matt Black Studios, and in fact, I'm so excited about this game that I reached out to the game's developer, Eric, and interviewed him about the game, its development history, and how he came up with what might be one of the most interesting innovations the Metroidvania genre has seen in quite some time.
My name is Eric. I am the Matt Black Studio. I'm making a game called Lucid.
Eric describes Lucid as the world's first Celestoidvania. Now, what exactly does that mean? Well, I'll let Eric explain.
Lucid is what I've been referring to as the world, doing the SpongeBob hands, the world's first Celestoidvania, which is a really buzzwordy way of saying it is a Metroidvania with very unique mobility option. And if for anyone who has played Celeste, there is this portion in it where if you jump, you have like jump resources, like your double jump, whatever, your dashes in the air. All of that gets refreshed if you jump and you touch like a node in the air. So you can stay hang time in the air and just keep hitting these things. As long as you keep hitting them, you don't touch the ground. I took that idea and I just ran with it. So it's not just you jump into the node, you have to like hit it with one of your many, what I've been calling crystal arts. They're basically your Metroidvania upgrades. You get them and they will not only enhance combat, they will expand mobility. So they're tied to the cardinal directions. You do them, and if you hit any, if you strike any target that's able to be hit, it'll refresh all your jump resources and your slashing abilities. You get 2 in the air. So by doing all that, you can chain your arts and stay airborne, and you have all this acrobatic air combat. You have all this acrobatic like maneuvering throughout the land. As you play a level or like a biome, you'll reach like a beacon, kind of like the map station in a Super Metroid, and it expands the map a little bit, but it also like brings power back to the grid, so to speak, and things will turn on and it changes the level, kind of like Mega Man X, where if you beat Chill Penguin, Flame Mammoth stage alters a little bit. That kind of happens. So once you do that, some nodes turn on that weren't there, and it opens up a new route that you can get to. So it's like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer.
Eric came from an architecture background and for many years worked as an architect in New York City. Game development was just a hobby at this point, and he worked on Lucid in his spare time. However, just a few years ago, the opportunity to work on the game full-time presented itself, so he took the leap to becoming a full-time indie developer. But while game development is a big shift from architecture, I was curious if his education and job experience had any sort of impact on his game development process.
So something that you learn, or I learned in architecture school, was like everything, every move, every decision in a room, building, landscape, everything has to have a reason, and like has to be backed up by like, why did you do this? What made you do this? Why do you think this is a good idea? Like, what do you hope to achieve by doing this? So everything has a holistic design, be it from all those decisions I just said, but also like the walls have to be, you have to be thinking about like what's inside of them, the plumbing, the HVAC, the insulation, how thick that is, what the ramifications of moving something an inch up. Once it was like, oh shit, we miscalculated and the ceiling has to be like an inch higher, it made the whole datum line of the second floor have to lift up. And then what happens is there's things called like height restrictions, and we had already meet the height restriction of the house, so now we had to squish the roof and we had to angle out it was a nightmare. But there's a long way to say that like you have to think holistically, like as much and as constantly as possible, and I think that really translated over to my design process in Lucid. So between the story, the art, the lore, the mechanics, like the motifs, everything is kind of like this Rube Goldberg Rubik's Cube of like feeding into each other, and everything has a reason, and it's not just done simply because, wouldn't it be cool? No, it's like, it would be cool if and because and why. So very holistically.
There's a couple things that I want to ask about, like kind of the the genesis and evolution of. And the first one was this the combat system, and really this whole like jumping between, making your attacks move around like that. Like, how did that idea? What sparked that idea? And like, I mean, obviously, I'm sure it went through tons of iteration, but how did it progress over time to where it is now?
Yeah, no, it's a great. I love this because it was such a light bulb moment, and it's one of the. I don't know. I forget who said it. I know it's like this isn't my quote, but someone said like find the fun, and I found the fun this one night, and so I created this asset in the game, and essentially it's like a locked door, and I was like, but if you had to like hit the things to unlock the door? So I made these nodes that you have to hit and like kind of like break the targets. I'm a huge Smash Brothers junkie, so it's very much like break the targets where you have to go around the level, hit all the things, and the door opens. And I was like, okay, but then I started like they were placed in. I was like, what if I placed them in such a way that it was almost like a course where like I just have to. If I could do it perfect, it would be like really fun and feel good. I'm also a guitarist, and I loved playing really intricate, fat, meaty, tasty licks. And I would play it over and over and over and over again, and just perfecting the solo or the riff, whatever, felt really good. So my new instrument, my controller, playing a chorus over and over and over again until it feels good was just something I'm used to. So I make this course and I'm going it over. I'm trying to do it faster and faster, and I'm trying to do it perfect. And then I'm realizing I'm having so much fun for like an hour and a half just doing this one chorus. And then it was just like, oh, this is the game. This is the game. And that was the catalyst. That was the light bulb. And I ran with it.
How does that work for a Metroidvania? Like, that's such a different way to do Metroidvania style exploration.
So Lucid started off as a way more traditional Metroidvania, but then that aha moment from before, the whole the routes and the break the targets kind of thing, that's when I was like, oh, the nodes. And eventually it became not just the pulse that turned on the things. I was like, what if you could hit them with the like slashes, and that refreshed it. So eventually your attacks would allow you to do the staying in the air. So then I was like, well, then the next question is like, well, this is fun, but does it work as a Metroidvania? And it does. It totally does. You just have to design the world around it. So there's where the holistic approach goes. If I had left the world the way it was, the new fun mechanic would have broken it. It would just like, because all of a sudden like your double jump doesn't mean anything if you have an attack that like you can just go so high. The only way around that is like, well, I gotta make really tall. You have to make it taller. I haven't mentioned it, but there's like very, like Super Metroid, you have like orange and green doors that can only be opened up by like certain missiles. The equivalent to that in Lucid is there are certain like floors, like cracked floors and cracked walls that can only be broken with the respective crystal art. So you'll see like these cracked doors, and like there's like an obvious. I've played games before. This is obviously something, but nothing I have breaks this. And then eventually you'll get like an attack that goes up, and you're like, I wonder. And you can break through it, and not that hit that counts as a hit. So you break through it, you refresh your hit, and there's a node up there, and you hit there, and then do two more, and then you get to the next cliff. It's basically just expanding the standard Metroidvania format, where like if you, instead of just needing a double jump to get here, you need the spear, but that requires the jump to be way bigger. So it was just rejiggering the map and the ideas, and just making sure it fit with the new paradigm of mechanics. Everything in your kit as Owen, the main player, everything you have, there's an enemy designed around it. For example, I have this one enemy where it's like a swarm of wasp, and they are 3 wasps that come in a formation, either a horizontal. First it was just a horizontal, and then I realized, I was like, well, what if it like changed cardinal directions, and that way, because you can swap your attacks on the fly, so it could start horizontal, then go vertical on a diagonal, and based on its orientation, it would then indicate to you which crystal art to use. So if it starts out here, you want to be slash, but then maybe you got distracted by another baddie, and by that time it went to a vertical one. You're gonna have to swap out, or if you had it as your sub attack, but you then have to use a different one. And maybe there's two different wafts going on at the same time. And you want to do a up and then an over. So the movement and your options absolutely influence the enemy design, attack patterns, and it's not even just your attacks. You have like a dash and your dodge roll. It's the only way to or the only way I could think of to teach the player organically how to do something is like challenge them in game with a like diegetic enemy or environmental hazard or something like that.
The Matt Black Studio and Lucid development in general is mostly a one-man operation. Lucid's gameplay development has been handled by Eric, but he has collaborated with other people on the game's music, including Unico, Andrew Black, and a third guest composer whose video game soundtracks are widely regarded as some of the best of the last 40 years.
The great and talented, the all-powerful David Wise of Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Star Fox Adventures, ukulele fame. He's the greatest. He's made some of my favorite tracks of all time. Aquatic Ambience and Stickerbush Symphony live rent-free in my head. So I love David Wise, and he agreed to do the project from a friend who reached out to a friend who asked, like, hey, here's the Lucid, would you be interested? He's like, you're a huge influence, and the vibe, every single musician I'm working with, my fiance and a good friend, Andrew, both of them gotten like, here's David Weiss's soundtrack, like here's the vibe. So now like for it to come full circle is wild. But to the scope, currently he's going to be doing a track. He's agreed to do a track using like the Lucid motif that Una wrote, my fiance, and it's become kind of like the equivalent to like the Zelda track. It's like the track, and he's doing a riff on that. And then if the Kickstarter is successful enough and we reach a certain stretch goal, he is gonna hopefully do like 3 more tracks.
Lucid's Kickstarter campaign went live on September 18th. And it hit its funding goal in under 72 hours. As of recording, it's met its first stretch goal and has just over 2 weeks to reach the next set of stretch goals, which includes 3 more David Weiss tracks, a boss rush mode, and more.
For anyone who's listening, thank you so much for listening to my rambling. But if you like video games, if you like indie games, if you like games with a lot of passion, a lot of heart, and a lot of thought put into them, and really want to dive into a world full of like colorful characters, interlocking storylines, really tight gameplay, easy to pick up but rewarding challenge, please go to www.lucidkickstarter.com. If the project speaks to you, if you believe in it, if you want to support it, please back it. It would be making my dream come true. It would be putting my family's dream help that come true. My 2 puppies get to eat dog food. They love eating dog food. That'd be awesome. So yes, please help support an indie dev. Please, let's make this happen. Let's reach as many stretch goals as possible. Thank you.
A huge thanks to Eric for taking the time to sit down to talk to me about Lucid. I think the game looks awesome, and I'm really excited for it. Another huge thanks to my Ko-Fi supporters and my Patreon supporters, whose names are on screen right now. They all get to see an entirely unedited and full-length interview between Eric and I over on Ko-Fi and Patreon, as well as get access to my exclusive Crawlmunity Discord server. And they get early access to videos and all that good stuff. You can find out information about all this down in the description box below, along with links to go check out Lucid, which I highly suggest you go do. Now, I really enjoyed making this video. I love talking to Eric and just talking to people about games in general, and I plan to do a lot more of that on this channel. So any support you can throw my way, whether that's just liking and subscribing or, supporting through Patreon or Ko-Fi, is a huge benefit. And it lets me get to talk to more people, do more developer interviews, hear more about, great Metroidvanias, dungeon crawlers, and what other genres I love, what other cool games are out there that catch my eye. You'll see a lot more of it, yeah. So I appreciate you watching. I appreciate your support, and I'll be back with more videos like this very soon.